black church was born fighting for freedom. They gave us the blues and we made music. They gave us scraps and we made soul food. They gave us the Bible and pointed to Ephesians where it says, slaves, obey your masters. Our forebears could barely read, but somehow they stumbled over into Exodus, where God told Moses to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. They knew that they were God's children. That's why they sang, I got shoes. You got shoes. All of God's children got shoes. When I get to heaven, I may be circumscribed here. I'm going to put on the shoes, shout all over God's heaven. And then they look at somebody in the corner of their eye, look at the master and say, heaven, heaven, everybody talking about it. Ain't going there. Howard Thurman said, by some amazing but vastly creative spirituality, the slave undertook the redemption of a religion that the master had profaned in his midst. In other words, we weren't simply converted to Christianity, we converted the faith and transformed it into a liberating faith, and out of that tradition, Martin Luther King Jr., Nella Baker, and Fannie Lou Hamer were born, and the Hampton Ministers Conference was born out of that tradition. And so I've come to say thank you, because in a very real sense, I don't simply come from Georgia, I come from you. I'm a preacher and a pastor, the son of preachers and pastors. My mother and father were both Pentecostal preachers. My late father was a preacher and a junk man. Monday through Friday, he loaded old cars, broken cars, thrown away cars on the back of a truck and took them to Chatham Steel, and that's how he fed his family, the junk man. But on Sunday morning, the junk man took off his dirty clothes, put on his other work clothes. And the man who spent all week lifting broken cars because he saw their value, the treasure in their trash, then lifted broken people, reminding them that our God is a junk man who goes around picking up people that other people have thrown away, because God sees the treasure in what the world sees as trash. And they passed that faith on to me. My folks, both Pentecostal preachers, they used to speak to me in King James English. My mom would say, thou shalt wash the dishes, lest I smite thee with my rod and my staff. And the day I arrived at Morehouse College, and I went to Morehouse College because I just wanted to go to the school that Dr. King attended. I'm one of 12 children in my family. I'm number 11. My folks read the Bible, be fruitful and multiply. I'm number 11 out of 12. I'm the first college graduate. I often say I went to Morehouse College on a full faith scholarship. I didn't have enough money for the first semester. I looked at my dad when they dropped me off, hoping he'd give me a few dollars to get through the first semester. He was very compassionate, very generous father, but he had a lot of children. My dad looked at me, true story, spoke to me in King James English. He said, silver and gold hath I none, but such as I have give I unto thee. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ go with you, son. He gave me a great big hug, my mama gave me a great big hug, and they just drove off into the horizon. 4 years later, I was standing on the stage getting my degree, cum laude. Thank you, Lord. And now I sit in the United States Senate. I just wanted to go to Dr. King's school. I didn't know I'd become the pastor of Dr. King's church, spiritual home of freedom. And now I sit in a Senate seat once occupied by Richard B. Russell. When I was born in 1969, both of Georgia's United States senators were arch segregationists. Talmadge and Russell. Russell said, "We love the Negro in his place, and his place is at the back door, while I now sit in his seat." And so I talk about this in my memoir, A Way Out of No Way. So thank you for just being you. Thank you for keeping the faith. Thank you for those of you who have supported my campaign, because you know what it represents. You know the place from which I emerged, the loins from which I sprang. I am a product of you. And so when I got elected in a runoff, running against the wealthiest member of Congress, I was feeling real good. And the next morning I was on all the morning shows. And I felt really good because it was not my first trip to the Capitol. I'd been to the Capitol before. I went in 2017 fighting for Medicaid expansion, and fighting against politicians who were giving the richest of the rich a tax cut and taking resources from the poorest of the poor. And I went there with a group of other clergy, and they told us we couldn't stand in the rotunda and pray and sing, that they would tell us 3 times to move, and if we didn't move, they would arrest us. And what they didn't understand is that I had already been arrested. My mind and my imagination had been arrested by the idea that our God makes a way out of no way. That of one blood God has made all nations to dwell upon the face of the earth. I had already been arrested, and so they took me to central booking that day in 2017. The Capitol Police arrested me. They were very professional. They didn't brutalize me, but they arrested me. Well, nowadays, when I roll up to the Capitol,
my God,
on 22s, the same officers that took me to central booking now get to escort me through that same rotunda to my office. Our God makes a way out of no way because of what you did. We made history, but more importantly, we made a difference. The next day I was feeling mighty good, feeling proud of what we had achieved. I was on every morning show. I was on CBS this morning, Good Morning America. I knew I had arrived because I was on The View talking to Whoopi Goldberg. I was feeling real good. It was the morning of January 6th. Think about that. January 5th, Georgia, a state in the old Confederacy, sent its first black senator and its first Jewish senator to the United States Senate. Then,
the next day,
on January 6th, the old demons that still haunt us rose up, driven by the big lie that some people's voices and certain people's votes ought not to count, trying to take us back. We're not about to go back. We're not about to go back. So they passed all kinds of voter suppression bills all across this country. I tried my hardest to get all 50 Democrats on board. You know what happened. We couldn't get two to do what we needed to do to change the rules to pass voting rights. But you have my word. I'm going to keep fighting for voting rights, because your vote is your voice is your human dignity. And in the meantime, we've got to vote no matter what. We passed the American Rescue Plan. We passed the largest tax cut for working and middle-class families in American history. I wrote a bill that provided aid to black farmers $5 billion of debt relief black farmers have been suffering for decades.
Wow.
They put us in court before we could get the money out of the door. They threw us in court, but we're going to keep fighting for our black farmers. We passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and now I'm fighting to cap the cost of insulin. Because I know a whole lot of folk who have diabetes, about 1 in 13 Americans. And if you need your insulin, you need your insulin. Pharmaceutical companies are trying to gouge the cost of insulin. We're doing all of that. But here's the thing, as I close. I got elected on January 5th. Violent, racist, anti-Semitic insurrection happened on January 6th. We don't get to pretend like January 6th did not happen. Those were not tourists going through the Capitol. We cannot turn away from the ugly side of our complicated American history. January 6th happened. But here's the thing. January 5th also happened. A black boy who grew up in public housing now sits in the United States Senate. And this election is about more than legislation. This is about more than this bill or that bill. It's really about the soul of America. Are we going to be the America of January 5th, or are we going to be the America of January 6th? And I want to challenge you, Black church. America needs you once again. America needs your voice. America needs your vision. America needs the kind of moral vision that has come the singing and the preaching of the black church. We've got to redeem the soul of our country one more time. Harder yet, may be the fight. Right may often yield to might. Wickedness for a while may reign. Satan's cause may seem to gain, but there is a God. Rules above. With a hand of mercy and a heart of love. If I'm right, God will fight our battles. We shall all be free someday. Pray for me. Yes, sir. I mean it, I'm not just saying it. Because I'm doing battle every day with powers and principalities against the rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness. Anytime you don't want to do something about gun violence after 19 babies are slaughtered in a classroom, that's spiritual wickedness. In high places. Pray for me and for my children and for my family. Pray for our country. But don't just pray with your lips. Pray with your legs. Show up. Make sure your voice is heard. And God will fight our battles. God bless you. Keep the faith.